The late afternoon sun cast a golden glow over Maple Grove, a pristine suburban street in Willowbrook, a wealthy enclave known for its manicured lawns and quiet charm. White linen tables, adorned with delicate crystal flutes, shimmered under the light. A string quartet played a soft rendition of Pachelbel's Canon, its notes floating through the warm, August air of 2025. The outdoor wedding of James Carter and Maya Thompson was a vision of elegance. Ivory roses cascading from a wooden arch, guests in tailored suits and flowing dresses, and a gentle breeze carrying the scent of jasmine. At the center of it all stood James, his platinum cufflinks catching the sunlight, a subtle city seal embroidered on his tuxedo collar. His bride, Maya, radiant in her ivory gown, adjusted her veil as their 8-year-old niece, Lily, clutched a bouquet of peonies, her flower girl dress swaying in the breeze. 60 guests mingled, their laughter mingling with the clink of champagne glasses. The catering staff, dressed in crisp black uniforms, glided through the crowd with trays of smoked salmon canapes. It was the kind of scene that could grace the pages of a lifestyle magazine, a testament to love and community in a neighborhood that prided itself on order and exclusivity. But beneath the polished surface, a storm was brewing. Susan Reynolds stood in her driveway 2 houses down, her manicured nails digging into her palms. Her designer blouse, pressed to perfection, did little to mask the fury twisting her face. She'd been watching the setup all morning: tents, tables, a small stage for the quartet, and with every passing hour, her irritation had grown. This wasn't just a wedding. It was an invasion, a disruption of the quiet she'd paid for with her $9,000 annual property taxes. She muttered under her breath, scrolling through the Safe Haven app, Willowbrook's neighborhood platform where residents aired grievances about untrimmed hedges or noisy lawnmowers. Today, her complaint was bigger. Without warning, Susan marched across the street, her heels clicking against the asphalt like gunfire. She zeroed in on little Lily, who stood near the dessert table, clutching her bouquet. "You," Susan's voice sliced through the music, sharp and venomous. "Get this urban trash off my street." Before anyone could react, she snatched the bouquet from Lily's hands and hurled it into the gutter, the peonies scattering across the pavement like fallen stars. Lily's eyes widened, tears welling as she froze. James, standing near the wedding arch, turned at the sound. His jaw tightened, but his posture remained steady, his hands resting lightly on his cufflinks. Maya clutched his arm, her ivory dress rustling as she whispered, "James, don't." The guests fell silent, their champagne flutes suspended mid-air. Susan's spit landed on James's polished dress shoes as she stepped closer, her face inches from his. "I'm calling immigration on every last one of you," she hissed, her voice dripping with contempt. "This is Maple Grove, not some project block party." The word project hung in the air like a slur, its weight sinking into the crowd. A collective gasp rippled through the guests. Aaliyah Brooks, Maya's 16-year-old niece, slipped behind the dessert table, her phone already recording. With a few taps, she started an Instagram live, her fingers trembling with a mix of anger and determination. "Y'all need to see this Karen losing her mind at my aunt's wedding," she whispered into the camera. The viewer count ticked upward: 23, 45, 73, as her teenage network spread the word faster than wildfire. Susan, oblivious to Aliya's livestream, pulled out her iPhone and dialed 911. Her voice cracking with manufactured urgency. "I need police at 847 Maple Grove Drive immediately," she barked, pacing her driveway. "There's a massive illegal gathering, loud music, public intoxication, probably drug activity. It's a bunch of urban people who don't belong here." Her eyes narrowed as she glared at the wedding setup. The string quartet now paused, the musicians exchanging uneasy glances. The dispatcher's calm voice cut through the foam. "Ma'am, can you describe the nature of the disturbance?" "Look, I pay $9,000 in property taxes for peace and quiet." Susan snapped, her voice rising to a pitch that made children cover their ears. "These people are destroying our community standards with their ghetto celebration." She gestured wildly at the white linens, the professional catering staff, the elegant floral arrangements, as if they were evidence of a crime. James took a slow step forward, his hands visible and non-threatening. "Ma'am, perhaps we can resolve this neighborly," he said, his tone measured, almost diplomatic. "Don't you dare patronize me." Susan whirled around, pointing an accusing finger. "I know exactly what you people are trying to pull here." The phrase "you people" landed like a slap, and a murmur ran through the crowd. Aaliyah's live stream surged to 156 viewers, comments flooding the screen. "This is unhinged." Someone helped the bride and groom. "This is going viral." While still on the phone with 911, Susan opened the Safe Haven app and started her own live stream to her 52 followers. "Emergency situation on Maple Grove," she declared, her voice trembling with self-righteous fury. "Protecting our community from these people." Comments appeared instantly. Call the HOA. Property values are tanking. This is why we moved to Willowbrook, but not all were supportive. One neighbor, anonymously, posted, "Susan, this seems excessive. Let them celebrate." Across the street, elderly Mrs. Eleanor Parker emerged onto her porch, her gray hair pulled into a neat bun. She shook her head, her phone discreetly recording through her window. Ring doorbells along Maple Grove captured every angle in crisp 4K resolution, their cloud storage silently preserving the chaos. The tension was palpable, a powder keg waiting for a spark. James's best man, Colonel Michael Evans, stepped forward slightly, his dress blue uniform commanding respect. His military bearing was unmistakable, but Susan was too consumed by her tirade to notice. "Where are your green cards?" She screamed at the catering staff, who continued serving hors d'oeuvres with professional dignity. "I'm documenting everything for my lawsuit." James knelt beside Lily, who was still staring at the scattered peonies. "Don't worry, little one," he said softly, his voice a calm anchor in the storm. "Sometimes people get confused about what makes a community strong." Susan overheard and exploded. "Don't you dare brainwash that child with your victim mentality," she shouted, her voice now shrill enough to draw neighbors from their homes. Linda Foster, clutching a folder of HOA violation forms, appeared from 3 houses down. Stephen Walsh followed, his phone displaying a decibel reading. "This is an invasion," Susan declared, gesturing at the reception. "Blocked driveways, excessive noise, public intoxication. Tell your parents this isn't the projects." Her words were a live wire, electrifying the growing crowd. Aaliyah's livestream hit 312 viewers, and the TikTok hashtag #MapleGroveWedding began trending locally. The Safe Haven app buzzed with 23 active commenters, some supporting Susan, others questioning her language thought the distant wail of sirens cut through the air. Susan's eyes lit up triumphantly. "Did you hear that?" she crowed, turning to her live stream audience. 12 minutes until you people pack up this illegal assembly." James, unfazed, reached into his tuxedo jacket and pulled out a thick folder. "Ma'am," he said, his voice steady as steel, "everything here is properly permitted through the appropriate municipal departments." He offered the papers, but Susan snatched them, scanning frantically. "Permitted by who? Your cousin at City Hall?" She scoffed, waving the documents dismissively. "These could be fake for all I know." The string quartet resumed playing, their soft notes a surreal contrast to the escalating confrontation. Maya stood with her bridesmaids, her hands trembling, but her head held high. She whispered to her mother, "This was supposed to be our day." James touched his cufflinks again, the city seal catching the light like a hidden promise. Something in his posture shifted, a subtle straightening of his shoulders, a glint of resolve in his eyes. The gathering storm was about to meet an unexpected. 4 stout 2 patrol cars rounded the corner at 4:05 p.m., their lights flashing but sirens now silent. Officers Daniel Lopez and Emily Chun stepped out, scanning the scene with practiced caution. Susan rushed toward them, waving her phone like a flag of victory. "Officers, thank God you're here," she exclaimed, her voice pitched with urgency. "These people have been terrorizing our neighborhood for hours. Noise violations, blocked driveways, public disturbance, the whole circus." Lopez, a 20-year veteran, surveyed the setup. White linens, professional staff, a string quartet now playing Vivaldi. Nothing matched Susan's description of chaos. "Ma'am, this appears to be a private wedding ceremony," he said, his tone measured. "What specifically is the disturbance?" Susan thrust her phone forward, her live stream now at 412 viewers. "Look at this invasion," she insisted. "They've turned our quiet street into some urban block party." Behind her, Alaya's Instagram Live surged to 847 viewers, comments flooding in. "This Karen is wild. Asterisk, poor bride and groom. Someone save this wedding." Asterisk, the TikTok teenager across the street switched angles, capturing Susan's interaction with the police. The hashtag Maple Grove wedding climbed higher, shares multiplying exponentially. Ring cameras continued recording, their silent footage destined for cloud storage and soon national news. James stepped forward, his folder of permits in hand. "Officers, I apologize for any confusion," he said calmly. "Everything here is properly permitted through the city." Susan grabbed at the papers again. "Permitted by who?" She shrieked. "Your homeboy at City Hall? These could be forgeries." Lopez's radio crackled, and he stepped aside, speaking quietly into his shoulder mic. Susan didn't notice his posture change, but Aaliyah's camera caught the moment. A slight glance toward James, a flicker of recognition. The stage was set. Susan's prejudice had ignited a firestorm, but the man she targeted was no ordinary groom. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across Maple Grove. James's cufflinks gleamed, a quiet symbol of the authority he hadn't yet revealed. The wedding, meant to be a celebration of love, had become a battleground for justice, and the world was watching. The air on Maple Grove Drive thickened with tension as the late afternoon sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the elegant wedding setup. The string quartet, sensing the need to restore calm, resumed their rendition of Vivaldi's Spring. But the notes felt fragile against the growing chaos. James Carter stood near the wedding arch, his hands clasped calmly, though his eyes tracked every movement. Susan Reynolds pacing her driveway, her phone raised like a weapon. Officers Daniel Lopez and Emily Chun assessing the scene. And the 60 wedding guests, their faces a mix of shock and indignation. Maya Thompson, his bride, stood by his side, her ivory gown catching the fading light as she whispered to her bridesmaids, trying to shield them from the venom of Susan's words. Susan's voice pierced the air again, her live stream on the safe. Haven app now broadcasting to 312 viewers. "This is an outrage," she declared, her manicured finger jabbing toward the white linens and crystal flutes. "These people think they can turn Maple Grove into a free-for-all block party." Her words, laced with racial undertones, echoed through the app, drawing a flood of comments. Asterisk, protect our neighborhood. Asterisk, this is why we have HOA rules. But cracks were forming in her support base. A few neighbors posted anonymously. Asterisk, Susan, you're blowing this out of proportion. Let them have their wedding. Asterisk, across. The dessert table. 16-year-old Elia Brooks angled her phone to capture every angle of Susan's tirade. Her Instagram Live had surged to 847 viewers. A hashtag Maple Grove wedding trending locally on TikTok, and X comments poured in. A digital chorus of outrage and support. This Karen needs to chill. Asterisk, someone save the bride. Asterisk, this is 2025. Not 1965. Asterisk, Elia's voice, low but defiant, narrated for her audience. Y'all, this lady's losing it at my Aunt Maya's wedding. She called the cops on us for no reason. Her teenage network amplified the feed. Shares multiplying across platforms faster than Susan could type. Officers Lopez and Chun stood near their patrol cars, their radios crackling with updates. Lopez, the senior officer, scanned the scene again. White tablecloths. Professional catering staff moving with quiet efficiency. A small girl in a flower dress clutching her mother's hand. Nothing resembled the public disturbance Susan had described. "Ma'am," he said, his tone professional but firm. "Can you specify the nature of the disturbance? We need details to proceed." Susan thrust her phone forward, her live stream, now at 412 viewers. "Details?" she snapped, her voice rising to a fever pitch. "Look at this chaos. Blocked driveways, excessive noise, probably drugs. These people don't belong in Maple Grove." The word "these people" landed like a grenade, drawing gasps from the wedding guests. James stepped forward, his folder of permits in hand, his voice steady as granite. "Officers, everything here is fully permitted through the city's Parks and Recreation Department. I'd be happy to provide documentation." Susan whirled around, her eyes blazing. "Permitted by who? Your buddy at City Hall?" She grabbed the folder from James's hands, flipping through the pages with frantic energy. "These could be forgeries for all I know. I'm a taxpayer, and I demand action." Her livestream audience swelled to 500, but the comments were turning against her. "She's unhinged." Asterisk, check the permits lady. Asterisk, Elia's feed, now at 1,200 viewers, captured Susan's outburst in real time, her hashtag gaining traction nationally. Neighbors began emerging from their homes, drawn by the sirens and the growing commotion. Linda Foster, a staunch HOA member, clutched a stack of violation forms, her lips pursed as she surveyed the wedding setup. "Susan's right," she called out, waving a form. "Section 12.4 of the HOA guidelines prohibits unapproved gatherings of this size." Stephen Walsh, another neighbor, held up his phone, his decibel reading app displaying 62 decibels. City ordinance allows 75 decibels until 10 p.m. on weekends, he announced, his voice hesitant. "It's within limits." Susan ignored him, her focus locked on the officers. Numbers don't matter when our entire neighborhood's character is under attack. Across the street, Mrs. Eleanor Parker, an elderly widow with a sharp mind, continued filming from her porch. A Ring doorbell camera, synced to the cloud, captured every word in crisp 4K. She shook her head, muttering, "This isn't the Willowbrook." I know. Her footage, though private for now, would soon join the digital storm. Other neighbors' cameras, dozens of them along Maple Grove, silently recorded, their automated systems uploading to secure servers. Elia switched her live stream to TikTok, where the algorithm propelled hashtag Maple Grove wedding to 2,000 views in minutes. Her narration grew bolder. "This lady's trying to ruin my aunt's wedding, but we're not backing down." Comments exploded. "This is racism. Straight up. Asterisk, protect the bride and groom." Asterisk, where's the mayor at? The irony of that last comment hung in the air, unnoticed by the digital crowd, but looming large over James, who stood silently, his cufflinks glinting with the city seal. Colonel Michael Evans, James's best man, moved closer to the officers, his dress blue uniform commanding attention. His military-bearing shoulders squared. Eyes steady drew a glance from Officer Chun, but Susan was too consumed to notice. "I'm calling my husband, Richard," she announced to her live-stream audience. "He's a lawyer. We'll shut this down with legal action." Her phone buzzed with notifications, her safe haven post now generating 127 responses, a mix of support and dissent. "Susan, you're embarrassing us. Asterisk, maybe talk to them first." Asterisk. The wedding guests huddled closer, their celebration unraveling. Maya's mother, a diabetic, checked her blood sugar monitor with shaking hands, the stress taking its toll. Children clung to their parents, confused by the shouting. 8-year-old Lily tugged on James's sleeve. "Uncle James, why is that lady so mad at us?" she whispered. James knelt, his voice gentle. "Sometimes, Lily, people misunderstand. What makes a community special? We'll sort this out." Susan overheard and scoffed. "Don't fill that child's head with nonsense. This is about property values, not your sob story." The police radio crackled again. "Unit 23, ETA 2. Minutes with backup," the dispatcher reported. Susan's eyes gleamed with triumph. "You hear that?" she shouted, turning to her live stream, now at 700 viewers. "The police are coming to clear out this mess." James, unfazed, opened his folder and pointed to a specific page. "Officers, permit number 20,251,847, filed March 15th, approved April 2nd, posted for public comment for 30 days. Fee paid in full, $2,847. Insurance certificate included, $2 million liability coverage." Officer Lopez scanned the document with his phone's app, nodding as the city database confirmed its authenticity. "Everything appears in order, sir," he said, his tone professional but curious. He glanced at James, sensing something more but not yet placing it. Susan's face flushed crimson. "In order?" she shrieked. "I'm a tax-paying resident. My word should be enough." The livestream comments turned brutal. "She's done for. Asterisk, check the permits. Karen, this is going national." Asterisk Alea's feed hit 2,500 viewers, the TikTok algorithm pushing it to trending status across 3 states. Shares multiplied, and local news outlets began picking up the story, alerted by the social media frenzy. Channel 7 News dispatched a van, their app sending push notifications. Asterisk breaking. Willowbrook wedding disrupted by neighbor dispute. Asterisk. The digital storm was no longer confined to Maple Grove. It was spiraling into a national spectacle. Susan, oblivious to her crumbling credibility, doubled down. "This is about protecting our community," she declared, her voice cracking as she addressed the officers and her live stream simultaneously. "We have standards. These people are—" She stopped short, perhaps sensing the weight of her words, but the damage was done. The phrase "these people" echoed across platforms, screenshot, and shared thousands of times. Alea's camera caught the moment, her voice a whisper. She said it again. "Y'all heard that, right?" James touched his cufflinks, the city seal catching the light once more. His posture remained calm, but a subtle shift, a tightening of his jaw, a flicker of resolve hinted at the storm he was about to unleash. Maya, standing beside him, fought back tears, her dream wedding teetering on the edge of ruin. The officers exchanged glances, sensing the situation was more complex than a simple noise complaint. The backup patrol car pulled up, its lights flashing. As Sergeant Robert Hayes stepped out, his experienced eyes scanning the crowd, the wedding arch stood untouched, a symbol of love now caught in a battle of prejudice and power. Susan's live stream reached 1,000 viewers, but the tide had turned, her supporters dwindling as her words fueled outrage. Alea's feed, now at 3,000 viewers, carried the truth to a global audience. Maple Grove Drive was no longer just a street. It was a stage, and the world was watching, waiting for the next act in a drama that would redefine Willowbrook forever. The late afternoon light on Maple Grove Drive had softened to a warm amber, but the air crackled with tension as if charged by an approaching storm. The wedding setup, white linens, crystal flutes, and cascading roses stood in stark contrast to the chaos unfolding. Susan Reynolds, her face flushed with righteous fury, waved her phone triumphantly, her safe haven livestream now at 1,200 viewers. "The police are here," she declared, her voice shrill as she pointed at the elegant reception. "This illegal gathering is over." Her words, dripping with venom, echoed across the digital void. But the tide of comments was turning. "She's out of control. Those permits looked legit. Asterisk. This is straight-up racism." Asterisk. James Carter stood near the wedding arch, his platinum cufflinks catching the fading sunlight, the subtle city seal gleaming like a quiet promise. His bride, Maya Thompson, clutched her ivory gown, her eyes glistening with unshed tears as she whispered to her mother, "This was supposed to be our moment." The 60 wedding guests, frozen in a mix of outrage and disbelief, watched as officers Daniel Lopez and Emily Chun reviewed James's folder of permits. Sergeant Robert Hayes, newly arrived, surveyed the scene with a veteran's calm, his presence adding weight to the moment. Aliyah Brooks, Maya's 16-year-old niece, angled her phone to capture every detail, her Instagram live surging to 3,500 viewers. The hashtag Maple Grove Wedding was now trending nationally on X and TikTok, with comments flooding in. "This Corinne's done for." Asterisk. "Protect the bride and groom." Asterisk. "Is this really happening in 2025? Aliyah's voice trembled with defiance as she narrated. "She's still yelling, y'all. Called us urban trash and everything." Across the street, Mrs. Eleanor Parker's Ring doorbell camera continued recording, its 4K footage destined to become evidence. Other neighbors, drawn by the sirens, peeked from windows, their own cameras adding to the digital storm. Susan, oblivious to the shifting narrative, thrust James's permit folder at Officer Lopez. "These are fake," she insisted, her voice cracking. "Permitted by who? Some friend at City Hall?" Lopez, his scanner app confirming the document's authenticity, handed the folder back to James. "Everything checks out, sir," he said, his tone professional, but curious. He glanced at James, a flicker of recognition in his eyes, but Susan cut him off. "Checks out?" she shrieked, turning to her live stream. "On a tax-paying resident. My word should mean something." Her audience, now at 1,500, was fracturing, with comments like, "You're embarrassing Willowbrook," and asterisk. "Check yourself," Susan asterisk gaining traction. James, his posture unwavering, stepped forward, his hands visible and non-threatening. "Ms. Reynolds," he said, his voice calm but carrying an edge of authority. "We've met before. Perhaps you've forgotten." Susan froze, her eyes narrowing. "Don't play games with me," she snapped, but her confidence wavered. The crowd leaned in, sensing a shift. Aliyah's camera zoomed closer, her viewer count climbing to 4,000. The string quartet, sensing the moment, paused, leaving a heavy silence that amplified every word. James reached into his tuxedo jacket, his movements deliberate, almost ceremonial. He withdrew a leather wad and extracted an official identification card, its city seal catching the light. He extended it to Officer Chun, who took one look and stiffened, her posture snapping to attention. "Good afternoon, Your Honor," she said clearly, her voice carrying across the stunned crowd. The words hit Susan like a physical blow, her phone nearly slipping from her trembling hands. "Your Honor?" she stammered, her live stream audience erupting into chaos. Asterisk. "Wait, he's the mayor?" Asterisk. She called the cops on the mayor? Asterisk, this is wild. Asterisk. Officer Lopez followed Chun's lead, stepping back with military precision. Sir, we apologize for any inconvenience, he said, his tone now laced with respect. James waved off the apology, his voice steady as granite. No apology necessary, officers. You're doing your jobs. Miss Reynolds was exercising her civic duty by reporting concerns. His words, polite but pointed, hung in the air. Susan's face drained of color, her mind racing through 3 years of interactions. The polite neighbor who waved at her mailbox, the man who helped carry her groceries during her hip recovery, the anonymous donor to her church fundraiser. His name had been on the thank you list, James Carter. How? How do you know my name? Susan stuttered, her world tilting. Who are you? James's eyes met hers, calm but unyielding. I'm James Carter, mayor of Willowbrook. He said evenly. We've met twice at city council meetings, Ms. Reynolds, where you addressed noise ordinances and landscaping contracts. The revelation detonated across social media like a digital shockwave. Aaliyah's livestream hit 5,000 viewers. The hashtag Mayor Wedding exploding across X with 10,000 mentions in minutes. Comments flooded in. She's so done. Asterisk. Mayor's wedding ruined by racist Karen. This is the plot twist of the century. Asterisk. Susan staggered back, her designer heels scraping the pavement. Mayor, she whispered, her voice barely audible. But you live, James nodded, his tone patient but firm, at 845 Maple Grove Drive, 2 doors down from you. The house with the blue shutters. We've exchanged pleasantries several times. The truth was a sledgehammer, shattering Susan's assumptions. Her live stream, now at 2,000 viewers, was a torrent of mockery and outrage. Asterisk. She didn't know her own neighbor? This is peak Karen energy. Asterisk. Screenshot everything. Asterisk. Channel 7 news reporter Rachel Lee arrived, her camera crew leaping from the van as 2 more news outlets followed. Mayor Carter, she called, pushing through the crowd. We had no idea this was your wedding. James nodded professionally. Good afternoon, Rachel. My wife Maya and I were hoping for a quiet celebration. His words, calm and measured, contrasted sharply with Susan's unraveling. Her phone buzzed incessantly, calls from her husband Richard, her business partner, her elderly mother. The Safe Haven app crashed from the traffic surge, but her cellular data carried her humiliation to thousands. Colonel Michael Evans, James's best man, stepped forward, removing his dress hat with ceremonial precision. I can verify His Honor's identity, he said, his military bearing commanding instant respect from the officers. I'm Colonel Michael Evans, Willowbrook Police Department liaison and the groom's best man. Susan's eyes darted. Between Evans and James, her reality crumbling. She clutched her phone, her live stream still running, capturing her stunned silence for 2,500 viewers. Sergeant Hayes approached James with deference. Sir, we'll handle this situation appropriately, he said. Please accept our apologies for the disruption. James shook his head, his voice steady. No apologies needed, Sergeant. You responded to a citizen's complaint promptly. He turned to Susan, his gaze piercing but composed. Ms. Reynolds, your concerns have been noted. We'll address them through proper channels. The implication was clear. This wasn't over, but it would be handled with precision, not passion. Maya, standing with her bridesmaids, finally spoke, her voice cutting through the chaos. James, let's have our wedding. We've waited long enough. Her words, firm but laced with emotion, grounded the moment. James smiled at her, a flicker of warmth breaking through his mayoral demeanor. He checked his platinum watch. 4:12 p.m. The ceremony was scheduled for 4:15, but Susan planted herself in front of the arch, arms crossed defiantly. "You're not proceeding until this is sorted," she shouted, her voice weaker but still defiant. Officer Lopez stepped forward, his tone firm. "Ma'am, you're interfering with a legally permitted event. Please step aside." Susan's livestream comments were merciless. Asterisk, she's obstructing now? This is a lawsuit waiting to happen. Mayor Carter's too calm for this. Aaliyah's feed hit 6,000 viewers. Her narration unwavering. She's blocking the wedding now, y'all. This is next level. James adjusted his cufflinks, the city seal glinting like a beacon. He reached into his jacket, his fingers brushing something small but significant. Move that went unnoticed by Susan but caught by every camera. The moment of reckoning was here, and Maple Grove Drive was about to witness a shift that would echo far beyond its quiet streets. The amber glow of dusk settled over Maple Grove Drive, but the tension on the street was far from fading. The wedding arch stood resolute, its ivory roses catching the last rays of sunlight, a quiet symbol of love amidst the chaos. James Carter, now revealed as Willowbrook's mayor, stood with his bride, Maya Thompson, his hand gently resting on hers. The 60 wedding guests, still reeling from the bombshell of James's identity, murmured among themselves, their eyes darting between the mayor and Susan Reynolds, who stood isolated in her driveway, her phone trembling in her hands. Her safe haven livestream, now at 2,500 viewers, had become a digital guillotine, broadcasting her unraveling to a growing audience. Comments flooded in. Asterisk, she called the cops on the mayor? Her business is toast. This is 2025's viral meltdown. Officers Daniel Lopez, Emily Chun, and Sergeant Robert Hayes formed a loose perimeter around the scene, their radios crackling with updates. Aaliyah Brooks, Maya's 16-year-old niece, kept her Instagram live rolling, her viewer count soaring past 6,000. The hashtag Mayor Wedding trended nationally on X, with 15,000 mentions and counting, while hashtag Maple Grove Karen became a meme across TikTok. Aaliyah's voice, steady but laced with indignation, narrated for her audience. "Y'all, she's still standing there like she didn't just try to ruin my aunt's wedding. And he's the mayor." The digital storm was relentless, with screenshots and clips circulating faster than Susan could process. Susan's face was ashen, her designer blouse now clinging to her sweat-dampened skin. Her phone buzzed incessantly calls from her husband Richard, her business partner, even her elderly mother, but she couldn't tear her eyes from the livestream comments. Asterisk, your landscaping company's done. Karen? Racist much? Asterisk, cancel her. Contracts. Reynolds Landscaping's Google business page, linked to her name through a quick search, plummeted to 1.3 stars as one-star reviews poured in, citing unprofessional conduct and discriminatory behavior. Yelp suspended her page due to unusual activity, but the damage was done. Her company's $2.5 million in annual municipal contracts, landscaping for Memorial Park, City Hall grounds, and athletic fields hung in the balance. James, his posture still composed, addressed the officers. "Sergeant Hayes, I'd like a full report of this incident for the city's records," he said, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "Include all witness statements and media documentation. We'll address Ms. Reynolds' concerns through proper channels." His words were measured, professional, but their implication was clear. Susan's actions would face scrutiny, and he would ensure it was fair but thorough. Hayes nodded, his respect evident. "Yes, Your Honor. We'll compile everything for the city attorney." Susan's knees buckled slightly, her live stream still running, now at 3,000 viewers. "This is a misunderstanding," she stammered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the crowd. "I was protecting our neighborhood." But her words rang hollow, drowned out by the digital chorus condemning her. Channel 7 news reporter Rachel Lee pushed forward, her camera crew capturing every angle. "Mayor Carter," she called, "can you comment on this disruption to your wedding?" James turned to her, his expression calm but resolute. "My wife and I wanted a quiet celebration with our community. We're disappointed but committed to resolving this through due process." The crowd pardon as Colonel Michael Evans, James's best man, approached the officers, his dress blue uniform a stark contrast to the chaos. "Officers, I can confirm the mayor's permits were processed through standard municipal protocols," he said, his military precision lending weight to his words. Susan's eyes darted to him, then back to James, her mind struggling to reconcile the neighbor she'd dismissed with the man now commanding the scene. She clutched her phone, her live stream comments a torrent of scorn. Asterisk. She didn't know her neighbor was the mayor? This is peak privilege. Neighbors who had initially supported Susan began to retreat. Linda Foster, clutching her HOA violation forms, slipped back toward her house, her face flushed with embarrassment. Stephen Walsh, who had measured the noise at 62 decibels, well within the city's 75 dB weekend limit, deleted his decibel app readings and avoided eye contact. Mrs. Eleanor Parker, filming from her porch, shook her head, her footage capturing Susan's unraveling for posterity. Other neighbors, drawn by the sirens and news vans, emerged with their phones, adding to the multi-angle documentation. The Safe Haven app, overwhelmed by 200 comments, crashed again, but X and TikTok carried the story to new heights. James turned to Maya, his voice soft but firm. "Let's proceed with our ceremony." Maya nodded, her composure a testament to her strength as a community activist. But Susan, desperate to regain control, stepped forward, her voice shrill. "You can't. Just ignore this," she shouted, planting herself near the arch. "I'm a taxpayer. I have rights." Officer Chun stepped in, her tone unwavering. "Ma'am, you're obstructing a permitted event. Step aside, or we'll have to escort you." Susan's live stream captured the warning, her audience now at 3,500, with comments like, "She's digging her own grave," and "Arrest her already." Aaliyah's feed hit 8,000 viewers, her narration cutting through the noise. "She's blocking the arch now, y'all. The mayor's trying to get married, and she's out here acting a fool." The TikTok algorithm pushed hashtag mayor wedding to 20,000 mentions, with local influencers reposting clips. News vans from channels 9 and 12 joined channel 7, their cameras zooming in on Susan's defiance and James's calm resolve. The story was no longer local. It was a national spectacle, fueled by the 2025 social media landscape where platforms like X amplified real-time outrage. James opened his permit folder again, addressing the officers with procedural precision. Permit number 20,251,847 includes fire department approval from May 1st, with commendations for safety protocols. Noise levels have been verified within ordinance limits. Lopez nodded, his scanner app confirming the details. "All clear." "Your Honor," he said, his use of the title sending another ripple through the crowd. Susan's face contorted, her live stream now a liability she couldn't escape. "He permitted his own wedding?" she muttered, grasping at straws. James corrected her gently but firmly. "I recuse myself from decisions involving this address to avoid conflicts of interest. Standard municipal ethics protocol." The crowd grew quiet, absorbing the weight of his words. Maya's mother, her hand still shaking from checking her blood sugar, leaned on a chair, her eyes fixed on James with pride. Lily, the 8-year-old flower girl, clutched her mother's hand, her peonies now retrieved from the gutter by a guest. The wedding party huddled near the reception area, their celebration on hold but their resolve unbroken. Susan's phone buzzed with a call from her business partner, but she ignored it, her focus locked on salvaging her narrative. "I didn't mean anything racial," she said to her live stream, her voice cracking. "This was about noise and property values." But the digital audience wasn't buying it. "You said, 'these people.' Own it, Karan. Asterisk. Your contracts are done. Asterisk." Her company's website crashed from the influx of negative traffic, and Google reviews dropped to 1.2 stars with 3,000 new submissions. James checked his platinum watch. 4:18 p.m. He addressed the officers, his voice carrying mayoral authority. "Officers, with your permission, I'd like to proceed with my wedding. My wife has been patient enough." Sergeant Hayes nodded. "Of course, Your Honor. We'll ensure no further interruptions." He turned to Susan, his tone formal. "Ma'am, we need to discuss your complaint. The event is fully permitted, and noise levels are within limits." Susan's shoulders slumped, her live stream still running, capturing her defeat for 4,000 viewers. Rachel Lee, sensing a developing story, pushed her microphone forward. "Mayor Carter, what happens next for Ms. Reynolds?" James's response was measured, a masterclass in leadership under pressure. "The city will review this incident through established procedures. A public hearing will be scheduled for Tuesday at 9 a.m. to address vendor conduct standards." The implication landed like a gavel. Susan's $2.5 million in municipal contracts were at risk, and her public meltdown had sealed her fate. As the officers escorted Susan back to her driveway, her phone buzzed with notifications, her business line, Richard's cell, even her mother again. The wedding party prepared to resume, the string quartet striking up a tentative note. James took Maya's hand, his cufflinks glinting as he whispered, "We're almost there." The crowd, now swollen with neighbors and media, watched in silence, the weight of the moment palpable. Susan stood alone, her live stream a digital albatross, as the consequences of her prejudice began to crystallize under the watchful eyes of Willowbrook and the world. The Willowbrook City Council chambers buzzed with anticipation on Tuesday morning, August 19, 2025. The room, with its polished oak paneling and rows of cushioned seats, was packed beyond capacity. Standing room only for the 200 residents, media, crews, and activists who had gathered for the public hearing. The viral incident at Mayor James Carter's wedding had dominated headlines, with hashtag Mayor Wedding and hashtag Maple Grove Karen amassing millions of views across X, TikTok, and news outlets. The air was heavy with the weight of justice, accountability, and the future of Willowbrook's reputation as an inclusive community. James sat in the front row, his hands folded, his platinum cufflinks replaced by a simple suit jacket. He had recused himself from the proceedings to ensure impartiality, entrusting the hearing to Deputy Mayor Catherine Jenkins, a seasoned leader with a reputation for fairness. Across the room, Susan Reynolds sat beside her attorney, her face pale and her hands clutching a prepared statement. Her designer blouse was gone, replaced by a modest gray suit, as if to signal contrition. Her landscaping company, Reynolds Landscaping, faced potential termination of its $2.5 million in municipal contracts, and the Google reviews, now at 1.1 stars with 4,500 submissions, painted a grim picture of her business's future. "Catherine." Jenkins banged the gavel, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "This hearing is convened to review vendor conduct standards for Reynolds Landscaping, following the incident on Maple Grove Drive, August 16, 2025. We'll hear testimony from community members and examine evidence to determine compliance with Willowbrook's anti-discrimination policies." The room fell silent, cameras from Channel 7, 9, and 12 zooming in, their feeds live-streamed to thousands. Susan's Safe Haven app post, now archived, had been replaced by a flood of community backlash, with 312 formal complaints filed to the mayor's office. The first witness was Mrs. Eleanor Parker, the elderly neighbor who had filmed from her porch. She walked to the podium with deliberate steps, her gray hair pulled into a neat bun. "In my 40 years in Willowbrook," she said, her voice steady despite her halting English, "I've never seen such ugly words at a joyful celebration. Miss Reynolds called that family urban trash and worse. But I also saw her help me with groceries last winter. People can change if they choose." Her words, captured by Ring doorbell footage, now submitted as evidence, drew nods from some residents and skeptical glances from others. Next was Aaliyah Brooks, Maya's 16-year-old niece, whose Instagram Live had sparked the viral storm. She stood confidently, her phone now a tool of testimony. "Ms. Reynolds tried to ruin my aunt's wedding," she said, her voice clear. "She used words like ghetto and these people, and she blocked the ceremony. My live stream got 10,000 views because people saw the truth." Aaliyah's footage, downloaded by the city's IT team, played on a screen, showing Susan's tirade in vivid detail. The room shifted uncomfortably, the racial undertones undeniable. A Reynolds landscaping employee, Maria Gonzalez, spoke next, her hands trembling. "I've worked for Ms. Reynolds for 5 years," she said. "She's been a fair boss, but what she said hurt us. My family lives in Willowbrook, too. We're not those people." Her testimony highlighted the human cost of Susan's actions. 23 employees, whose livelihoods depended on the company's contracts. The crowd murmured, some with sympathy, others with demands for accountability. Susan's attorney presented her statement. She rose, her voice shaky as she read from trembling papers. "Your Honor, council members, I displayed unconscious bias and catastrophically poor judgment on August 16th. My words were inexcusable and do not reflect my true values or my company's commitment to Willowbrook." She cited stress-induced anxiety, supported by medical documentation, but the room remained skeptical. Her apology felt reactive, a response to public exposure rather than genuine remorse. Comments on X, live streaming the hearing, were brutal. "Too late, Karen. Words have consequences. Asterisk. Save your business, not your ego." Asterisk. Catherine Jenkins maintained order, her gavel sharp. "We're here to evaluate vendor conduct under City Charter Section 12.3.7, which mandates respect and inclusivity from all contractors," she said. "Ms. Reynolds, your actions violated our anti-discrimination pledge, signed in 2022, which increased your revenue by 23% through minority-owned supplier initiatives." The data, pulled from James's tablet during the wedding, was now public record, underscoring the irony of Susan's prejudice, undermining her own financial interests. Community testimony continued. Carl Michael Evans, in civilian attire, but with his military bearing intact, spoke briefly. "Mayor Carter's leadership has strengthened Willowbrook for 6 years. Ms. Reynolds' actions disrespected not just a wedding, but our community's values." His words carried weight, drawing applause from half the room. A dissenting voice, Linda Foster, the HOA member who had initially supported Susan, spoke hesitantly. "I thought Susan was protecting our neighborhood, but I was wrong. We need to do better." Her admission marked a shift, as other neighbors who had backed Susan now stayed silent. The hearing stretched to 4 hours, with 23 residents testifying. Some demanded contract termination, citing Susan's ghetto and urban invasion remarks as evidence of systemic bias. Others, like Mrs. Parker, urged compassion, noting Susan's past contributions. Catherine Jenkins closed the testimony phase, her voice firm. "This isn't about punishment. It's about ensuring our vendors reflect Willowbrook's values of unity in diversity." The council deliberated for 30 minutes, their decision a balance of justice and rehabilitation. Jenkins announced the verdict. Reynolds Landscaping will elegance of justice and rehabilitation. Jenkins announced the verdict. Reynolds Landscaping will AI decision. Remain on probationary status for 18 months. Ms. Reynolds, Must complete 40 hours of cultural competency training. Submit quarterly diversity reports. And perform 100 hours of community service at the Willowbrook Community Center. The room erupted in mixed reactions. Applause from those who valued mercy. Grumbles from those seeking harsher consequences. Susan's attorney nodded, whispering to her, but her face remained blank, the weight of probation sinking in. James, observing from the front row, remained silent, his recusal a testament to his commitment to fairness. But his influence was felt. In the council's next announcement, the Willowbrook Welcome Initiative, a set of reforms inspired by the incident. Jenkins outlined the plan: mandatory anti-discrimination training for all city contractors, a good neighbor recognition program to celebrate inclusive residents, and updated safe haven app protocols requiring verified identities to prevent anonymous hate. The initiative drew from the Inclusive Communities Act of 2025, a federal push for local governments to address bias proactively. The hearing adjourned at 1 p.m., but its impact rippled outward. News outlets ran headlines: Willowbrook Mayor's Wedding Incident Sparks Reform. X. Posts praised the council's balance of accountability and compassion, with #Willowbrook Welcome gaining traction. Aaliyah, now a local hero, posted a TikTok. Recap: her 15,000 followers amplifying the initiative. They're making our town better, y'all. This is what justice looks like. Susan left the chambers quietly, her attorney shielding her from cameras. Her business faced an uphill battle, but the probation offered a path, however steep, to redemption. James and Maya stood outside, greeting residents who approached with words of support. Mrs. Eleanor Parker clasped James's hand, her eyes warm. "You've made Willowbrook proud, young man," she said. James smiled, his voice soft. "It's the community that makes us strong, Mrs. Parker." The wedding photographer, who had captured the chaos, now snapped candid shots of the crowd. Images that would tell a story of resilience and reform. As the sun climbed higher, casting light through the chamber windows, Willowbrook felt different, not perfect, but purposeful. The hearing had laid bare the community's divisions, but it had also planted seeds for change. Susan's journey was far from over, and James's leadership had only begun to reshape the town. The world, still watching through live streams and news feeds, waited to see what came next on Maple Grove Drive. 3 years later, on a warm August afternoon in 2028, Maple Grove Drive glowed under the same golden sunlight that had illuminated James and Maya Cotter's ill-fated wedding. Memorial Park, now a vibrant hub of community life, buzzed with the annual Unity Day barbecue. Tables laden with barbecue ribs, cornbread, and iced tea stretched across the lawn, where hundreds of Willowbrook residents mingled to the rhythm of a local jazz band. Children darted through the crowd, their laughter mingling with the music, while James and Maya, now celebrating their 3rd anniversary, stood at the center, their hands entwined. James's cufflinks, bearing the city seal, caught the light, a quiet reminder of the day that had changed everything. Susan Reynolds stood near a floral display, her hands steadier than they'd been in years. Her gray suit had been replaced by a simple sundress, and her face, once taut with fury, now carried a cautious humility. Her company, Reynolds Landscaping, had contributed the park's vibrant flower beds, a task she'd overseen under probationary supervision. The 18 months following the 2025 hearing had been grueling: 40 hours of cultural competency training, 100 hours of community service at the Willowbrook Community Center, and quarterly diversity reports that forced her to confront her biases. Initially, she'd attended the training with resentment, but the sessions, paired with daily interactions at the center, chipped away at her prejudices. She'd met families like Maria Gonzalez's, whose stories of resilience mirrored her own struggles, and slowly, stereotypes gave way to relationships. At a community forum 6 months after the hearing, Susan had admitted, "I didn't realize how my words sounded to others. Impact matters more than intent." Her voice had trembled, but the admission marked a turning point. She hired 3 employees from underrepresented communities, not out of obligation, but because her training revealed untapped talent. "Best workers I've ever had," she confessed to James during a chance encounter at the grocery store 9 months later. "I almost lost everything because of my ignorance." James, ever gracious, nodded. "Growth is hard, Ms. Reynolds, but it's worth it." Willowbrook had transformed, too. The Willowbrook Welcome Initiative, launched within 30 days of the hearing, had become a national model. New vendor contracts included stringent anti-discrimination clauses, and the Safe Haven app now required verified identities, curbing anonymous hate. The Good Neighbor program celebrated residents like Mrs. Eleanor Parker, who received an award for her quiet courage. Property values rose 12%, driven by Willowbrook's reputation as a beacon of inclusivity, a stark contrast to the chaos of August 16, 2025. The viral wedding incident, once a stain, had become a catalyst for progress. Featured in Municipal Monthly as a case study in crisis leadership, James and Maya's story inspired a documentary, Real Life Stories: When Prejudice Meets Justice, which won awards at film festivals for its portrayal of social change. Maya's nonprofit expanded to 12 cities, promoting community dialogue, while James's approval rating soared to 89%, the highest in state history. The Unity Day barbecue, now a tradition, drew hundreds, with Susan's flower beds a symbol of her redemption. At the 2028 event, she approached the podium, her voice steady. 3 years ago, I was the worst version of myself, she told the crowd of 800. Today, I know community means everyone belongs. The applause was cautious but genuine, a testament to her measurable growth. The National Municipal League declared Willowbrook America's model inclusive community, and Harvard Kennedy School published a case study, *Crisis Leadership in Local Government, the Carter Wedding Response *. 23 cities adopted variations of Willowbrook's policies, from anti-discrimination training to community conflict resolution. Susan's company, once on the brink, thrived with contracts across 5 municipalities, its diversity initiatives earning a regional award. "I'm not proud of who I was," Susan said, "but I'm grateful for the second chance." The humanism of this story lies in its balance of justice and redemption. Susan's transformation shows that change is possible, even for those with deep-seated biases, when accountability is paired with opportunity. James's leadership, calm, principled, and focused on systems over vengeance, demonstrates that quiet strength can reshape communities. The lesson is clear: prejudice thrives in silence, but dialogue, supported by policy and compassion, can dismantle it. Willowbrook's journey teaches us that communities grow stronger by addressing differences head-on, choosing rehabilitation over destruction, and building bridges where walls once stood. As James addressed the Unity Day crowd, his voice carried the same authority that had silenced Susan 3 years prior. "Real change happens when we choose accountability over anger," he said. "Our differences make us stronger, and your voice matters in that transformation." He paused, smiling at Maya. "Share your stories. They create the change we need." The crowd erupted, their applause echoing across the park. This story, and others like it, lives on through Legacy Stories, a channel dedicated to tales of resilience, justice, and human growth. Subscribe to Legacy Stories on YouTube and X to discover more narratives that prove measured justice triumphs over prejudice. Hit the notification bell to stay inspired by communities that choose unity over division. What would you do in James's shoes? How can your neighborhood build inclusivity? Share your thoughts below. Your voice can spark the next transformation. Together, we're writing better stories for the next generation. proving that love and justice can prevail, even in the face of hate.